Hello, I'm Thomas Mancala back with another video. Today we'll be talking about a fellow named Jerry Falwell Jr. Now you might have heard that name in some headlines recently, but we'll get to that in a little bit. For those who don't know, Jerry Falwell Jr. was the president of Liberty University, which is a private evangelical Christian university known for, among other things, having super strict rules. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look at why he's no longer the president of Liberty University, and just take a look at some of the other questionable things he's done, and compare that to Liberty University's strict rules. So to give you an idea of how strict Liberty University is, I've included a list of rules and consequences for breaking those rules. I thought it would be fun to compare that list to some of the things that Jerry has done, and to see how many reprimands he would get, how much he would owe in fines, and how many hours of community service he would have to do. So let's take a look at some of the stuff he's done. August was a rough month for Jerry. It all started when he made a post on Instagram. He deleted it pretty quick, but the damage was already done. On August 7th, he agreed to take an indefinite leave of absence. Here's a list of all the rules of conduct that he broke with just the picture. In total, he racked up 146 reprimands, almost $5,000 in fines, and 114 hours of community service. Later on, he did a radio interview apologizing and explaining what went on. Now I'll let you decide for this one, but to me he sounds pretty hammered.
You know, it was weird because she's pregnant, so she couldn't get her pants zipped, and so I was like trying to I had on a pair of jeans that I haven't worn in a long time, so I couldn't get mine zipped either, and so I just put my belly out like hers, and it was just she's my wife's assistant, and she's a sweetheart, and I should never have put it up because it embarrassed her, because, anyway, I've apologized to everybody, and I promised my kids I'm going to try to be a good boy from here on out.
That's pretty bad. They gave you a chance to explain yourself, and you can't even show up to the interview sober? The results of this interview are another 72 reprimands, another $2,100 in fines, and another 60 hours in community service. August didn't get much better for Jerry. On August 25th, Falwell resigned as president of Liberty University after allegations were published that he and his wife had engaged in a years-long affair with a man that they met in 2012. Jerry denied his involvement in the affair, but the man involved in the affair said that Jerry would actually watch, and according to the article that I'm reading, the pool boy had the screenshots to prove it, which proves you should just never mess with a millennial. And if everything in that article is true, that means Jerry just threw his wife under the bus. And obviously his wife would know the truth, so I'm not sure if he just convinced her to take the fall, or if he just lied about it and let her take the fall. And if that's the case, I wonder what that was like, because she obviously knew the truth. All in all, it's a pretty weird situation, and if you want to read more about it, I'll include a link in the description. So in order to come up with a total for this one, I had to make a few rules. The pool boy said that they met multiple times a year, so I'm going to equate that to 5. And from what I can tell, the affair started in 2012 and went to at least 2019. It said in the article that they would meet at hotels in Miami and New York, and the Falwell's home. After doing some math, I figured out that Falwell would have over 4,000 reprimands, owe more than $150,000 in fines, and have to serve over 3,500 hours of community service if he were a student. And I would say that's a pretty conservative guess. So August was a pretty expensive month for Jerry. In July he was mostly quiet, but in June he made a pretty bad post on Twitter. Now that's something you should never ever post. But it was especially bad, considering it was less than a week after George Floyd was killed. Come on, Jerry. Have some decency. For what's probably one of the worst things that he's done on this list, he only came out of it with 66 reprimands, $1,900 in fines, and 66 hours of community service. And this isn't the first thing he's done in poor taste after a tragedy like this. Back in 2015, he said this after a mass shooting in California.
It just blows my mind when I see the President of the United States say that the answer to circumstances like that is more gun control. I mean, if some of those people in that community center had what I've got in my back pocket right now, is it illegal to pull it out? I don't know. Is that anyway? always thought if more good people had concealed carry permits, then we could end those Muslims before they walked in and killed it. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to encourage all of you to get your permit. We offer a free course, and let's teach them a lesson if they ever show up here. So
I think Christians can agree that that wasn't Christ-like at all. So the total of this infraction was 114 reprimands, almost $4,000 in fines, and 114 hours of community service, and a minimum of 2 semesters out. It's just sad that they let this guy lead one of the biggest Christian colleges in the world. Besides what I've already talked about, he's also bragged about sex to multiple employees, shared provocative photos of his wife to his employees, and asked Michael Cohen, the guy who's currently in jail right now, to help him get rid of some of the provocative photos of his wife. He's also done some pretty shady stuff with real estate and money, and he called one of his own students the R-word. That's terrible. They're paying money to go to his college, and he calls them the R-word. And while all that stuff is really, really bad, I think the thing that should have gotten him fired a lot sooner was his comments on Christianity in defense to Donald Trump's most infamous quote, and I'm not talking about "Make America Great Again." Jerry told CNN, "Our whole faith is based around the idea that we're all equally bad. We're all sinners, we all need Christ's forgiveness." And while the second part of that statement is true, the first part couldn't be more wrong. Christians definitely don't believe that everybody is equally bad. That's why heaven and hell exist. How was Liberty University okay with this guy as president for as long as he was? I couldn't think of a much worse role model to lead a Christian university. This type of behavior is disgusting for anyone, but it's especially disgusting for the president of America's largest Christian university. And Jerry's only defense is that he's not a minister. But we don't hold ministers to a higher standard than the common folk. Ministers are just under more scrutiny because they're the leaders of the church, much like you were the leader of a Christian university. So while you're not a minister, you're still a role model to over 15,000 students on campus, and all the faculty, and just Christians in general. So now let's tally up everything that he did, and note that this isn't a list of every bad thing that he's done, and that there are probably a lot more that we don't know about. So with that in mind, here are the totals. Jerry Falwell Jr. broke 18 different rules of the Liberty Code, accumulated 5,416 reprimands, $202,345 in fines, and racked up 4,710 hours, or 196.25 days of community service. Unfortunately though, because he resigned, and there wasn't a formal accusation or admission of wrongdoing, Falwell is going to be receiving a $10.5 million severance package, giving him a net gain at the end of this video of $10.3 million. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you have any suggestions for future videos, I'd love to hear them. If you'd like to do some more reading on this guy, I put some links to some articles in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.